In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crack a WPA wireless network, WPA encrypted. WPA is similar to that of WEP, as in they're both security authentication methods. However, with WEP, it was fairly vulnerable because its way of authenticating was submitting hashes on a regular basis through IVs, which would be initialization vectors. And because of that, we could just easily snip the IVs, gather them, accumulate them, and then crack it. However, with WPA it's a little different. WPA's way of authenticating is basically by doing a four-way handshake, which means a computer that wants to connect to your network will send a signal to the router stating it wants to connect, and then at that point they would compare salted hashes. Now, when I say salted hash, I mean the every hash is specific to the network basically, because every network will have what's called an SSID, which is pretty much just the name of the network, and every hash is salted with that, so it'll be specific. It's not like you can just carry around one hash and crack all the networks in the world. And the reason they did that was for a security purpose, make it a little bit more secured. So that might sound a little confusing at this point, but I'm going to go and elaborate further by continuing on with this tutorial. So let me just switch to an easier desktop here. Let me use my Hell desktop. Okay, it's a little bit easier to see. Now, for this, I recommend using Backtrack as your distro of choice. However, some Windows operating systems are compatible with Airmon, which is the tool we're going to be using. But I do recommend using Linux for this because compatibility is a lot higher. I also recommend Backtrack specifically as far as distros go because it has everything you need already incorporated, drivers and everything. I have my Backtrack distro set up in a virtual machine through VMware Workstation. You can either deploy this by installing it on your hard drive using a virtual machine like I do, or using a live CD. And if you don't know how to make a live CD, all you do is just get the ISO, which is the CD image of the distro, burn it to a CD, and then boot off the CD. Also, if you want to use a virtual machine, there's plenty of tutorials already out there. My WEP tutorial, I show how to install it into a virtual machine. Also, I might end up making another tutorial on how to do it. So if I do so, I'll add an annotation or something, letting you be aware of that. But anyways, continuing on before I digress too much. Okay, once you're in your Backtrack environment or whichever distro you're using, first thing you're going to want to do is open up a shell console, and there'll be an icon down here for that. And also in this instance, I'm going to open up Kate, which is basically a version of K-Write. So I'm going to have that open. The reason I'm doing this is just to notate information down, make it a little easier to see here. And once in your shell console, you want to type in airmon-ng and hit enter. And I need to log in as an admin first. Okay, great. Okay, and then you'll see your interface name. So we want to notate this down. WLAN0, this is going to be our interface. Oops, forgot I changed this. Okay. Next thing we should probably want to gather is the MAC address, or our MAC address. There we go. And to see our MAC address, we'll type in MAC changer hyphen S for show, and then our interface name, which is WLAN0. Press enter, and there's our current MAC address. Now, also, you may not feel comfortable with your MAC address being the real thing when you do this. You can also change it with MAC changer. You just type in MAC changer space -M and then the desired MAC address. So just a set of 6 different characters and then your interface name, and I'll change it for you. You can just specify that instead. Now, once we have this information down, we can go ahead and let me space this out here. Okay, we can switch back to our shell console, and now we want to see available networks near us that we can potentially crack. So we do arrow dump space, or arrow dump -ng space, and then our interface name, which will be WLAN0 in this case, and hit enter. Okay, I'm just going to expand this, make it a little easier to see here. Okay, in this example, first thing I need to point out is the authentication method. We're going to be looking for WPA or WPA2 encrypted networks, and authentication needs to be PSK to make sure the passcode's shared. And in this example, I'm going to be using my own network. I have this set up just to make things a little bit faster here. It's going to be Elite Network. So I'm just going to copy this entire line here for reference. I'm going to break it down a bit here. So I'm going to paste this in my Kate. I'm going to start getting some information here. My BSID, which will be the access point's MAC address, I can notate down. And in this instance, we'll see here the BSSID is going to be this right here, which I have notated down here. So I'm just going to copy this and label it as a BSSID. Also, what we want to notate down is the ESSID, and that's going to be the name of the network, as we see over here, which is Elite Network in this case. Okay, and we also want to notate down the channel. Channel in this case, notated by CH, is going to be 6. So we can just copy that down, 6. And so far, this is all the information we're going to need at this point, so we're going to proceed. So now that we have all the information, we want to go ahead and proceed on this specific network. So we can just type in arrow dump -ng. We want to notate the BSS ID, which is going to be the one right here, the one we notated down in Kate. Actually, I'm just going to notate these commands here to make it a little bit easier, so we can just copy and paste. And we're going to copy this BSS ID right here. And do space -W for the right command. We're going to name this, let's just name it my WPA. And then space -C for channel. We're going to make the channel 6 as it is for this network. And then we're going to specify our adapter interface, which is WLAN 0, and press enter. And now that we have that information, we can just copy it down here and paste it into our terminal or shell console. And go ahead and press enter. And actually, I didn't mean that. I mistyped it. A little syntax error. It's going to be 2 hyphens there, by the way, in case you didn't know that already. Okay, hit enter, and that should start sniffing this network. And normally, if you're doing WEP, this is all you would need to do. You'd obtain initialization vectors through this data flow right here. And the main thing we want to watch for is to see if there's a station on network. To crack WPA, you're going to need a station already on the network. So right here, I have a laptop next to me actually that's connected to my network. And I'm just going to copy their station ID. Now, their station ID is basically just the system's MAC address. And we need this in order to obtain that handshake that takes place. So I'm going to just Control-C to stop this. I'm going to highlight this and copy this over to our Kate right here. I'm just going to label this their MAC address. And notate it there. Okay, now we can proceed with the next step. And for the next step, what we need to do is we need to de-authenticate this client right here. Basically, we need to make them lose connection really quick and then hop right back on just so they can re-authenticate, which is give us a chance to obtain that handshake, which apparently already took place. I don't know how that took place. Actually, it's because this computer was asleep and I just woke it up. But anyways, just pretend that's not there. Normally in your window, this won't even show for you. So let's go ahead and proceed with the next step. So the command to de-authenticate this client is going to be aire play, so AIRE play -ng space -0 to signify that's a de-authenticate command, and then space 15. It's going to send 15 de-authentication attempts to the router, the access point, trying to de-authenticate that client, and then space -A, and we're going to specify the MAC address of the access point, which is going to be the BSS ID. And after that, we're going to enter in -C, and then a MAC address of a computer on the system, which is that station MAC address. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that down here and specify it there. And then we can just go ahead and notate down our interface name, which is WLAN 0. Okay, so we can just copy that down here. And generally at this point what we want to do is we want to proceed with this arrow dump command, let it run through. And so you want to start that arrow dump command for yourself. You'll see here that that WPA handshake is no longer there. And I'm going to open up another shell console here. In this new shell console, we want to type in the airplay command that we had earlier. And I need to give myself admin to do that. Okay, great. Oh, there's my password. Anyways, let's go ahead and notate down the airplay command, and we want to make sure we do this while we have that dump taking place. And we can just hit enter, and we're going to see here it's sending de-authentication attempts to the router to basically de-authenticate the station already on the network, causing that authentication to take place, that handshake we were talking about earlier. And if we switch over to other shell, we should see that a WPA handshake has taken place, and that means we've obtained that little salted hash that we needed. So we can go ahead and stop this. And I can stop this as well. I don't need that going anymore.